Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. It's time check. It's 1:22. Yeah, it's a bit advanced. We still have more than 5 minutes before we start. So let's just want to check whether our presenters are all here. We have from Hong Kong, Miss Tommy Law. From the Philippines, Miss Layag. She was there a while ago. I saw her. And then the team of Sir Cyril from the Philippines. And then another team of Sir Cyril from. But the main author is actually from Guam, Miss Marianne Tesoro. Yes. And the fifth from the United States, Miss Christina. Yeah. And then you have 6 presenters this afternoon from Korea, KS. Thank you. Presenters, please be ready. We will start in a minute. Okay, so we start on time. It's already 1:30. And since all the presenters of this concurrent session are all here in the room, so might as well start on time. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Millanes. I am from De La Salle University, Philippines, and I will be your moderator for this concurrent session. Please take note that this session is on student leadership. There are just but few reminders before we start. First, on timekeeping. So the usual thing, the same thing that happened yesterday. Presenters will be given 15 minutes to present the paper, and then it will be followed by another 3 to 5 minutes of maybe Q&A, feedback, comments, recommendations also from the audience. I requested Diane here, that lady in what block, to do the timekeeping. So she will give the signal after the 10th minute to remind the presenter that you only have 5 minutes left. And then please take note that the Ministry of Education of South Korea invited students. So it might happen that there are student observers present also in this concurrent session. There would be a selection or awards. So that would mean at the end of the session, a QR code will be projected for all participants and audience here in the room to rate the presenters. Okay, I guess that's all for the reminders given to me by David. To maximize the time, we begin student leadership. Well, talking about student leadership, I know you would all agree this is one of the reasons why education and educators like us exist, right? This is to prepare the students to improve or to become productive members of the society and the community. The summit covers this under the theme, Empower Students. We would want them to become leaders and change agents through involvement in clubs, organizations, community service, leadership, sustainability initiatives. We would want also to teach our students the values, competencies, skills, and knowledge necessary to contribute in building more sustainable society. We have 6 presenters in this concurrent session, all present. We'll try to manage the 2 hours given. And there's also a reminder before I forget it at the end of the session. There is an error in the program of the last cluster session. 4C and 4D will also start at 3:40, not 4 p.m. All right? So those are actually presenting for cluster 4C and 4D. You need to proceed to your respective venue immediately before 3:40 p.m. Okay, are there any other concerns or questions, especially from the presenters? Let's begin. Without further ado, let's listen to our first speaker or presenter coming from Hong Kong, Lun Lo, and he will be talking about the paper, The Learning Experiences of Student Mentors in Non-Course Based International Service Learning Program. We give Yun Lo a big round of applause. Or Tommy Lo, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction, Michael. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tommy Law from the Chinese University of Hong Kong. And then as you can see my PowerPoint, so can change to my PowerPoint? Not yet. Okay, just wait a minute. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I'm very glad to be here today. And actually, this is my first time to come to Daegu of South Korea. And this is also my first time to join this conference. So I'm very glad to be here today. This is the Chinese University of Hong Kong. We are actually located in the New Territories of Hong Kong, near the harbor, a very beautiful campus. So here is a little bit about myself. I'm actually working in the Chinese University of Hong Kong Student Experience and Development section of the Office of Student Affairs. And my research interest is about student mentoring, service learning, and student whole person development. And I'm also actually a MBTI trainer, a mental health first aid trainer, and personality dimension trainer. Okay, in student experience and development section, we organize a wide array of whole person development activities as non-formal learning experience for students. So from life and death education, adventure program, social enterprise startup schemes, and also like non-course based international local service learning activities and etc. So before I joined the Chinese University of Hong Kong, I was actually working at the Education University of Hong Kong, which is a university to train students to be teachers. And back to the time before COVID, I conducted the research related to students' non-formal learning. So it's about the learning experience of student mentors in service learning program, and which is a case study of student mentors in the Education University of Hong Kong, how they develop communication, collaboration, and leadership abilities through participating in the LEAD program, the Leadership Enhancement and Development Program, which is a non-course-based service learning program. My rationale was that if we were able to better understand that the learning experience of student mentors in these kind of experiential learning experience, we can be able to provide better insights for student development practitioners for their program design and the delivery of programs. Okay. So this is the LEAD program, and actually from 2009 to 2019, there were about 2,000 students studied in the Education University of Hong Kong, joined the LEAD program. So they travel to those developing countries like Vietnam, Bangladesh, Cambodia, India, Indonesia, also Mongolia as well, to conduct a 2 to 4 weeks service learning trip over there. Okay, so this is totally non-credit bearing, non-cost based, and here's a little bit about the LEAD program I'm going to share with you. So the LEAD program is designed to cultivate students' leadership abilities, broaden their global perspective, enhance their cultural competencies, and also development of generic skills, which are actually very important for the professional and career development, especially when they graduate, they will become teachers, and they really have to have such very essential leadership skills for their teaching job. So students will travel to developing countries for about 2 to 4 weeks, and they will engage in different community development activities like house building, renovation work, and also teaching children English, teaching them and educating them about hygiene, and sometimes they even engage in other local community service as well. So also we will send them, they're not going to stay in a hotel, they stay in a village. So this is a kind of cultural learning experience to them as well. So in the LEAD program, I actually incorporate mentorship components in it, because the student that they once joined the LEAD program as mentees, so after they join the first year being a mentee, they can be promoted to become a mentor in the next year. And we go for a very, very strict selection process to find out the best students to take up the role as a mentor. Because this is not like a 2 weeks program or 2 months program. It's a year-long program. That student, before they join the tour, we will have a series of training, pre-departure training sections organized to them. And then student mentor, they will be responsible for leading that pre-departure training sections, and then they have some report back section after they return from the tour, something like that. So we select students to join to become our mentors, to lead a group for about 15 to 20 students joining the lead program for 2 weeks in Christmas break or even like Easter holiday break or summer holiday break as well. So why mentoring in service learning? Because leadership is very important for our students, especially they will become teachers upon graduation. So that we have to create a platform for students to better develop the communication skills, problem solving and collaboration skills, so that they can be able to use these skills for their future teaching job, and they can be able to know how to communicate with different stakeholders in school settings. Actually, the LEAD program is a kind of student-staff partnership program, because we engaged student mentors to take up the role like staff members. Okay, so we work together with the student mentors, and we provide training to them. We co-create non-formal learning experience to students as well. So here you can see why we would like to incorporate student-staff partnership in the program, because it's help provide non-formal and informal learning opportunities to students. It helps achieve students' success and engagement. It unleashes their talents. It helps enhance staff and student experience, and actually it also helps enhance staff capacity as well. So we also have to be realized that this is a kind of new approach to help students to better prepare for their career development. So I adopted Cope's theory of experiential learning in my research. And then because Cope's theories articulated that individuals' knowledge is developed through four models of learning cycle. And it helps explain how leadership skills of student mentors was created and transformed through their participation in service learning activities. And I've actually done some literature review in regard to service learning, student mentoring, and service learning experience in cross-cultural context, but I'm not going through it in very details for the time being. So my research is an exploratory case studies using purposeless sampling. I conduct one-on-one interview with 6 research participants. We have conducted 2 interviews, semi-structured interviews to them. And at the same time, I also reviewed the reflective essays because it's a kind of content analysis. And here you can see some background information of the research participants. They traveled to 2 different countries. The first one is the time that they were mentee, and then the second time is that they were mentors in the LEAD program. So in the research findings, by conducting the one-on-one interviews with 6 research participants and revealing the reflective essays of the 10 mentors, 5 major learning outcomes were identified. The first one is joining non-course-based international service learning activities is important for pre-service teachers. And the second one is student mentors, they gained engaging and valuable learning experience through the participation as mentee. Because we also interviewed them, asked them about the mentee experience as well. And they served as lead program, and then they transformed the learning from personal development to collective benefits. So after the first year they joined the lead program, they are very enthusiastic in joining the lead program again as a mentor. And they develop communication, collaboration, leadership skills, cultural competencies, civic participation, and social responsibility through non-course-based international service learning activities. And they are able to transform and apply the mentorship experience because it's a year-round learning process. They use the experience for the work context, the personal development, and influence others. So my findings related to literature review. Then we found that service learning in the LEAD program helps develop students' social responsibility and caring attitude. And mentoring in the LEAD program helps develop student communication, collaboration, and problem-solving skills. As Dr. Phillips shared this morning, so these kinds of generic attributes are actually very important for nowadays students. And the LEAD program provides cross-cultural learning experience to enhance students' cultural competencies as well. And then there is a synergy of service learning, mentoring, and cross-cultural learning experience. Okay, and how did the LEAD program benefit the pre-service teachers? Participating in overseas service learning activities has proven to be instrumental in strengthening the teaching skills of students enrolled in Bachelor of Education programs. And they're able to develop a multiple perspective and cultivates respect for cultural difference, respect, diversity, and etc. And then students that actually, when they become teachers, they can share their stories, their learning experience, and what they found in the LEAD program to their future students, and to engage them to take part in different kinds of local or even non-local service learning activities as well. So here are some implication practice for student affairs practitioners. So we should recognize the educational benefits of serving as a mentor and the additional advantage of volunteering for such a role. And we should encourage students to participate in international experiential learning programs like the LEAD program to cultivate essential skills and attributes required for the future career and personal growth. And we should share the goals, concepts, organization structures, and service learning components, mentoring, and cross-cultural components of the LEAD program to student development practitioners. And so that's why I'm here today. And we should embrace a train-the-trainer approach. So this is an approach to help to engage students to better utilize their experience and share it with other junior students as well. And we should seek out additional international opportunities and foster collaboration with local, overseas NGOs, university, government organizations, etc., in order to provide more diversified experiential learning activities to our students. So actually, it's not easy to organize the LEAD program because you have to change a student to be a mentor. It's not an easy task. But then at the end of the day, students can benefit a lot from the program, and you will see how students, they treasure their relationship and the learning experience that they have gained in the LEAD program. So I hope you enjoyed my presentation today, and this is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you for the presentation. So another 3 to 5 minutes for comments, feedback, or questions coming from the audience. We heard a lot of key points here: mentoring, leadership, service learning. So are there any questions or insights, reflections? Anyone? Yes, Sir John.
Okay, I understand your question. Thank you so much for your question. How do I prepare my students to have such a leadership ability to deliver the LEAD program? So first of all, we provide training to them. We will invite some previous mentors to share the learning experience to current mentors. So this is another round of student engagement process. And then I also share some leadership theories and framework, but not really very, for a boring one, but I just share like distributed leadership, something like that, and transformative leadership, some concepts to them so that they can be able to do the leadership role. And as I've just mentioned, I am an instructor of personality dimension and MBTI, so that I use these kind of tools to let the students know what's their strengths and their weakness, and how to identify the core needs of their student mentees. So this kind of approach will help students to better manage the group, and they will be more able to understand the strengths and weakness of their student mentees as well. Thank you so much for your question.
Thank you, John. We have another question,
Okay,
Cyril.
thank you. Right. Yes, that's right. That's right. Because actually my research is like a qualitative research, just for my research. But every student that they join the program, before they join the program, we will do a pre-test to understand the generic attributes like the communication skills, collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking, something like that. And after they finish the 2 weeks tour, and after they report back their learning experience through a mass sharing section, and then we will send them another survey to understand their learning experience as well. So this is a year-long process, and we expect that they will have very significant improvement in these kinds of skills. So we also use quantitative approach to measure. And other than that, every student could join the LEAD program will have to submit an article and reflective learning journal to all of us. So our role as a student affairs practitioners and student development practitioners have to review what the students have learned from the program, and then and we'll talk together with the student mentors for the preparation for next year LEAD program, something like that. So you can see when I select students, because it's a very popular program in the Education University of Hong Kong, and then every year we send about 200 students join the program. So over the last 10 years, about more than 2,000 students joining the program, and then more than 500 students will apply for the program to compete for the 200 places for the LEAD program. And I engaged student mentors to sit in the interview panel to select the suitable candidates to join their group, so that they will be more committed, they will feel part of it, and they know that I trust their ability, and I delegate the authority to them to select the best candidate to join the LEAD program. Something like that. So and every 5-day evening from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock evening time, then I will gather all student mentors to, like, for example, each year we have about 20 to 22 or 24 student mentors. They lead about 200 students, divided into like 10 to 12 groups. And then we will discuss how they can deliver the training workshop to the students and what they are going to do to that today, something like that.
Wow.
So very, very student involved and engaged in this learning process.
Yeah, that's really a beautiful program on mentoring and student leadership. Something that we can learn from.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tommy. Are there any other questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you. I just want to ask a question linked to the country or the partners which are part of a LEAD program training or getting or hosting the students you send. Do you have any criteria for selection of those people, or whether the students have a chance? And how do you ensure the synergies between the quality between different partners in case you have different ones? And this is first. And second of all, do you have any guidelines for replication of these programs, or this is something which is set for your institution? And do you have anything for, let's say, exporting the practice?
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for your question. The first one is how do you select the best suitable hosting organization? So it's very challenging. At the very beginning, I still remember that I met a host organization in Vietnam, and then we discussed about the collaboration, and we started the first collaboration. And in the second year, that Vietnam host organization, that he also introduced me to other partners in Vietnam as well. And because that organization is under NVDA, National Voluntary Development in Asia, something like that. So that I joined that association, and then through that association, they introduced some partners to me. And before I send my student to that country, I will do a pre-tour visit to that country in advance, so that I can be able to understand where my students are going to stay and what they're going to do, and discuss with the host organization about the planning and the program that involved in that 2-week service learning program, something like that. And actually, I have an article, a very comprehensive article. You can just search in ERIC. That you type my research topic in ERIC, and then you can find more details related to how the guidelines and the methodology that I conducted this program. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Tommy. I know that there are still a lot of questions running in our minds. No, maybe after the session, we can approach Tommy, for
Definitely,
a one-on-one mentoring on this.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Okay, given the limited time, we need to proceed. Let's thank Tommy now for sharing learning experiences of student mentors in non-course based international service learning program. Now we proceed with the second presenter from the Philippines, my home country. To present the paper, A Development Program for Student Representatives in the University, we welcome on stage here in front, Ms. Diana Genevieve Layag, Coordinator for Student Discipline Programs of De La Salle University. A big round of applause, please. I'll be the one to time you, Diane. All right, start.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So my study is on the student representatives in the University Discipline Board. Now, for everybody's context, we all know that our universities have student discipline boards. No? So my study is about the students representing the student sector in that University Discipline Board, who is also comprised of different representatives from different sectors in the university, like the faculty, the administration. Okay, now, so we call them the Student Representatives Pool. So nothing fancy, or we call them the SRP. So now just to give you a brief background, these SRPs, we call them, they usually undergo a training that comprises around 7 to 8 weeks, the 1 to 2 hour sessions every week, okay? And then, but prior to that, they get to have an orientation, they get to have an interview, and then that training. And then eventually, come the next term or semester for others, many of these students flounder in their engagement. So despite the investment of time in that training and being able to sit in the discipline board, there's really a problem with the engagement of the students. And also the problem eventually is in the retention. So when I came in the office, one of the concerns was that there was only like 1 or 2 student representatives sitting in the many discipline cases that the university had to sit on. So thus, this study. Now again, so basically the problem, when I sat on this article, on this paper, I just thought about what else are the needs of these students. There were like, all of these things that were given to them, and then eventually they don't, were really having problems with their engagement. And then of course, what else do they want to know? Have they gotten enough, And then how can we improve their engagement and retention? So looking at the literature, I looked at the student involvement in the hearing process. There's really not much about that. But then I found out that, of course, very, very important, the involvement of students in the discipline board. Okay? And then for program developers and program managers like myself, it's very important that we train these jurors, no? And then involved other people in the process. Okay? And then, of course, we look at the student development goals for this. Particularly just community, active accountability, interpersonal competence, social ties. So these things give me an idea how this has to be run. And then of course, I looked at the importance of youth voice and engagement. Okay, and again, later on this will come out later. The importance, despite this youth voice, the importance of adults in the process. And of course, when we talk about engagement, particularly stressing here is about cognitive engagement. Of course, we know that when you talk about student development theory, it's about cognitive engagement, it's about emotional engagement, it's about social engagement, things that I'll be discussing in a little while. And of course, since our office is the Student Discipline Formation Office, I also looked at student discipline approach, okay? And the importance of kind discipline. There's many types of discipline in the universities, but one of the things that resonates with the practice that we use in the university is what we call kind discipline. Okay, now this is a conceptual framework of how I look into this. Now the office, now the green circle there is how we look at the framework, how we do things in the office. We have their promotion, formation, and then prevention, then eventually transformation. That's how we do things in the student discipline board. And then where do I situate the student program? So eventually I thought of, this has to be encapsulated in everything that the office does. Because eventually these students are representatives of the office. So now, given the types of questions that I had, the research design is, of course, qualitative, using focus group interviews, and secondary data. Why secondary data? Because secondary data, when I started this study, I was very new in the office and I didn't know where to start. So what I did, I called into the many evaluation forms that we had over the 3 years. So I looked into that and got all of the qualitative comments from the students there, pulled them together and analyzed that. And then, of course, I got the current students. Basically, these are the active students. I said really the engagements of floundering. I didn't know how many students there were, so there were three senior outgoing student representatives that I was able to pull together and had this focus group interview. Okay, so that's how I did it. Okay, now again, so I looked at the themes. Now, what are the findings? Basically, nothing so surprising except for a few nuances. Now, number one, there's a need for suitable learning space. Now, timing is very important. So these are things factored in the next training sessions. Physical space is also very important for the students. So that would mean that when we meet with students, we also have to consider where the venues are, in order to really engage them. And socially speaking, one of the needs that were found here is that the engagement of the teacher, the trainers themselves, and of course, the involvement of their peers in the process. These things were not in the former training sessions. So I think you already get an idea of where I am going to later on. And of course, very important, the students has a need for competence. Okay, so these sample cases just shows that that in order to engage students, they have to know what they are getting themselves into. Therefore, sample cases were then incorporated in the training sessions. Okay, communication skills. Some students they also need to develop the verbal skills. When we got how do we get these SRPs? Before the pandemic, the way that we get these students from a pool is very random. We just get them from a list of names, and then we get the grades, those who factor in, and then we just get a random number. That's how we got the pool of students. Yeah, so eventually, but then those things were changed. And then eventually, so we get students who are very introverted, students who, when you talk to them and they get interested, okay, but then they don't have these skills, particularly the confidence when they have to sit down and make decisions with the people, with the adults in the board. And then, what were their best experiences? These best experiences are important because when I did the focus group interview, I wanted to center the coming program to really so that the incoming students will get these experiences as well. Okay, so one of the best cases, very interesting, is the technological cases that were related to technology. And I'm saying that these are cases before the pandemic. AI is not yet a big word then, okay? So, but then they were very interested in technological cases. What's also very interesting is that they like emotionally charged cases, as I call it. These are, when you have discipline violators in the university, it's really, some emotionally charged scenarios are really inside the boardroom, and they really find that very interesting and consider the best experience. And controversial cases, universities sometimes really have those cases that sometimes meet the social media's eye. So sometimes they really find that a best experience also. They're also happy with some of the decisions that they did because when you're part of a discipline board and you know that a student is in trouble, and then eventually you get a good story out of it. When you're able to turn things around and being able to help the student in the process, that's really a happy decision for them. And another thing is working side by side with some of the best people in the university. So they get to meet with the faculty president, people that they've never heard of, They get to meet with the university legal counsel, people that normally a student do not meet and would not want to meet, right? Okay, now what about the challenges? Now, some of the challenges were basically the change of schedule. When a student representative gets a case, this student has a class. No? So when this student, let's say for example, the case is scheduled at, let's say, Thursday, 1 to 2:30 p.m. and a major class is scheduled there are sacrifices along the way. Okay. And then technologically based cases where the student representative is expected to have the know-hows. Okay, so again, this wasn't the boom of AI then. So really, students have really to prepare themselves when they are the student representative for that particular case. Because for example, if the case is really very technological in nature, and the members of the board are what 50s, 60s year old, so they have to really be able to explain how the case happened. And of course, even if it's considered as a best experience, emotionally charged cases are still challenging. Now, another interesting finding here is, do you know, guys, that when we meet with students, they observe and they learn professionalism from us. Okay, punctuality is one of the things that they learn. They look at us and they see if we are prepared. Okay, they learn from their mentors. When they observe other members, they're being taught, how do you question, how do you make your questions when you do your your inquiries inside the panel. They actually learn from the people around them, and these are the mentors. They become their mentors. Okay, and these are things that they also learn: be confident but not intimidating. Things that they also acquire, and then being purposive, being objective but empathetic. Now, again, this study basically just corroborates previous findings about the importance of supportive adult relationships. The importance of these students getting skills such as social information processing of external stimuli. We are that. Student development goals and student conduct and student development. Okay, the importance of including mock hearings, so which we already incorporated. Peers sharing their peers in their experiences. So we also incorporated peer mentoring in this development program eventually. The mentoring relationship that came from an adult and the relationship for another peer. And of course, this relationship is collaborative in nature. So now this collaboration also extends inside the boardroom, that these students, they have to be able to learn that, your idea is not the best idea. You have to be able to work with the other members of the board. Okay, giving feedback to them. The briefing is also very important because of the emotionally charged, the possibilities of that inside the boardroom. Critical thinking, making connections about statements because they get to evaluate these things. And for conclusion, we see that these student discipline representatives, they act as the voice of the students. They are appointed, so therefore they should be trained continually. Consequently, so I've already worked on this program, emphasizing the importance of adult relationships, everyone else that are, as they say, invisible inside the boardroom, and also their peers in the process. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Diane. All right. This topic on student discipline comes sometimes in different terminologies like student behavior, student conduct. I do not know how these are actually used in different institutions and in different countries. Now, do we have any other questions or clarifications? Yes, sir, for Diane.
Hi, thank you so much. A question that I have is if you can talk about the process of selecting and ensuring the privacy of these cases don't actually come out of there and it becomes part of their daily occurrence at the university.
Number one, when the students apply, now we've already changed the process. Before it used to be random, but then later on we made it into a voluntary system. So now students engage in the system voluntarily. They apply for the program, which was actually kind of new. We did that during the pandemic. And then secondly, in terms of data processing, they actually sign consent forms. And students, when they handle cases, they are not allowed to review the cases outside the office. And when we give files to them, they're usually encrypted. Yeah. Does that answer? Yeah.
Thank you. And I guess they also signed that, and we call it NDA, the non-disclosure
yes, the non-disclosure
agreement.
agreement also. They also signed that, so those are consent. Yeah. Non-disclosure agreements.
Or else they're gonna have also student discipline case.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
In violation of data privacy.
Yeah. By the way, he's our director. He's the director of the office. Yeah. My boss.
We belong to one office, Diane and,
Yeah.
and I. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Good afternoon. Kenji Himenea from the University of Nava Cáceres in Naga, Philippines. May I just inquire po if the members or the student representatives are paid?
No, they're not. Actually, this is pure voluntary. Before, we used to give them enrollment slots, advanced enrollment slots. But since the university provost made an announcement that, this is a voluntary activity, volunteering in these kinds of organizations should not expect any award. So eventually, we told the students that it was actually reduced significantly. So those who did very well and very actively in the program, I just select them myself. And then after, so like we're given like only 3 slots every term, 2 to 3 slots in a term. So during the during the orientation, we really tell them they're not going to get, and in part of the sessions is really the emphasis on volunteerism. It's really the emphasis on that. This is about serving others.
Yeah. So it's voluntary. Maybe it's the experience, a leadership training as well,
Yeah.
now for the students representative. And they're actually sort of delegated by the university student government. So they really represent the student body. Thank you. Yeah, maybe one last question from ma'am. Okay.
I'd just like to ask if you have any criteria regarding the selection of the students, because one of the, I think, would think no that moral integrity is particularly or is part of the selection process, and at the same time the emotional maturity is would also be part. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. In terms of their discipline cases, it has to be clean. They have to have, even if they have a minor offense, they are eventually disqualified from the program. Okay, and then in terms of grades, there is a grade requirement for them to apply, and in terms of emotional readiness, usually I sit in the process. So I'm a psychologist myself. So I really look into the maturity of the student, and even in the cases, I'm the one who give the cases. So usually I really develop a personal relationship with the student so that I would know what their triggers are, so that when there are cases assigned to them, I know which case is not to be given to this particular student. I know the level of maturity. I really work on them one on one. Yeah, so that's really following through in their development. Yeah.
Thank you, Diane. All right, one last question, ma'am. And then we proceed with the third.
Hi, Diane. Congratulations. I just want to ask, so going, follow up lang din nung sa question ni ma'am. By the way, I'm Jing Matias from Northwestern University, Philippines. I would like to ask, how about the terms, term of office, the length of period, like how they serve, how long they served as a student or part of the disciplinary board? Is there a certain term that's fixed or what? Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you for that question. Actually, once a student enters the program, that's really a developmental program for them. So once they enter, they get into very basic cases, and then eventually as they learn from sitting in the board, developing that confidence, learning how to question, being able to be sensitive about the student, and also being able to be socially sensitive about the environment. Because when you're in a discipline panel, the parents can be reactive, so they learn those kinds of skills that you don't get to teach those skills. They have to be acquired inside the boardroom. So as we see their maturity inside the boardroom, they get to be given more sensitive cases. And then eventually, there's not really a number of years, because some of the students, they stay for like 2 years. Some of them are already graduating when they come in the program, like 1 year to go. And then some of them really long. So what we do, those who are really very experienced, they become like mentors. They mentor the incoming students, and they mentor the students depending on, I give them like cases like they specialize in. So like, for example, in the cases that are, let's say, for example, those that are related to sexual harassment cases, for example, these are ladies. Eventually, we bring them into the formal hearing, the ones that really have lawyers in them, and then eventually we bring them up into the university, the other levels of hearings in the university. We have a CODI, the Committee on Decorum and Investigation, where the human resources are involved. So those who are really very matured in the program, they get to be sent to those kinds of cases.
All right.
I hope that answers
All right.
your question. Yeah,
We
you.
thank again Diane. Give her a round of applause for sharing with us the paper, Development Program for Student Representatives in the University. If you have any other questions, you can also approach Diane after this session. The third paper. The third paper is on defining student leadership attributes in higher education institution, the implication for student leadership development among student affairs practitioners of South Manila Educational Consortium. This is actually authored by multiple writers or presenters. Allow me to read their names. Cyril Ryan Lituanias, the Associate Dean of De La Salle University; Levi Albania, the Dean of Student Affairs of De La Salle College of St. Benilde; Mr. Victor Vigo Jr., the Dean of Student Affairs of St. Scholastica's College; and Dr. Marife Rojas, the Associate Professor and Head of Student Welfare Unit of Philippine Normal University. Please give them a big round of applause.
Thank you, Sir Mike. Esteemed professors, student affairs and services practitioners, good afternoon. What's interesting about our group is that we're representing a consortium of schools in South Manila. So the title of our research is Defining Student Leadership, Identity in Higher Education Institution, Implications for Student Leadership Development among Student Affairs Practitioners of South Manila Educational Consortium. So our names have already been mentioned. So Sir Sai, myself, Mr. Vigo, Dr. Marife, and Miss Mary Margie May. So let me just give a brief background about the South Manila Educational Consortium. It's a collaboration among higher educational institutions in Manila, particularly in the Taft area. This includes 7 faith-based universities and college. 6 are Catholic universities, 1 Christian university, 2 are state-run universities, and 3 are privately owned universities. And then the consortium aims to promote education and enhance accessibility to quality learning. Now, student leadership development is integral to higher educational institutions, student affairs, and our committee, the South Manila Educational Consortium Student Affairs Committee. In fact, we consistently and regularly conduct monthly meetings to further strengthen our cooperation. Now, our research indicates that the diverse engagement opportunities foster strong leadership attributes, impacting students' well-being and future careers. Now, identifying these attributes is crucial for continuous student leadership development. Now, this paper explores how student leaders within the SMEC develop their leadership identity and aligns their experiences with leadership identity development models by Cummings and in 2005 and Skinner. So let me call on Mr. Victor Vigo Jr. to present our methodology.
Thank you, Sir Levi. Mabuhay, good afternoon, everyone. So again, I'm Mr. Vigo. So to continue, the research, our study aims to answer the following questions, which I will not read by one due to the limited time. So we have utilized quantitative research design. We the researchers used a semi-structured questionnaires, no, that which is aimed to collect the required data. So our participants, coming from the 12 member schools, we have sent an invitation to the different heads of the student affairs offices of the 12 member schools. However, during our online focus group discussion, which was conducted via Zoom, only 8 student leaders were available, and two of which were actually coming from the same university. So, and of course, after we have collected the data through our online FGD, the data was analyzed using thematic analysis. So to further discuss the results of our study, may I call on Sir Cyril Litwanias to share with us no, the result of the focus group discussion.
Thank you, Sir Victor. All right, so these are the results of our study. So the results are categorized based on the three variables. So we have the shared leadership experiences, the leadership identity process, and the making sense of their leadership identity. So we uh, thematize, no? We categorize them into themes. So we identified in our consortium that student leaders are really involved in the university-wide events. So another is rebuilding student community through service and empowerment. And students as well are very busy in doing their training and formation and doing networking and undergoing, while doing all this, our student leaders are undergoing a lot of emotional and mental health issues and concerns. It's beautiful also to note that our student leaders also are affirmed and even mentored by our student affairs professionals, no? And we just captured one of their stories, no? It says here statements. It says here that hardly a few step up to run and hold positions in the University Student Council or University Student Government, unlike in the organizations or department council. So we focus on rebuilding the USG after the pandemic so that there will be student representation and voice. Also, we need to ensure the continuity of work we have initiated. Another theme, another variable on leadership identity process, and this is very important in our research. And in here, we found out that the opportunities that we provide them led them to, to identify their attributes, and being part of the university really help them create their identity. So, for example, it was very visible that if they're coming from a Catholic school, there is a Lasallian identity or an identity from the other Lasal schools. It's very important for them, that process of building their identity or attributes as a leader. Another is the opportunities that they're given to them, like opportunities to make decisions, opportunities to, assign them to a bigger task and responsibilities that help them become a decisive student leader, being innovative and open and resilient. And we also highlighted that having a spiritual connection, that process also helped them um, identify their leadership attribute. And there's one statement, no, in one of our participants said, no, even if there were many rejections and failures, we just need to continue, even if sometimes we are a bit tired of the admins, referring to the administrations or administrators. But at the end of the day, they understand and they feel that what we're doing and what we're fighting for, after all, is for all the students. So being resilient was the turning factor for all of us to ensuring that we are able to achieve what we are achieving now. The third variable is we're looking at the how they make sense of their experiences and identifying their values as a student leader. So here we found out that the authenticity of to self or authenticity to self is very important for them. Safety, for example, because they always campaign for safety, and another is the concept of faith and resiliency. That's also uh, their value, and lifelong learning as well. And with all these processes, student leaders also portray active participation in school and community. No, that's beyond school activities. We try to summarize their responses through this illustration. We're thinking of what's really best illustration, but this is how we look at this. The shared experiences of the student leaders, actually, we call them opportunities. Um, like their experiences in their families, the world, their own realities, the opportunities in the universities and colleges, the events that they've engaged in, and even engaging with the administrators. So these are opportunities that help them grow. So we look at the identity process as really important aspect in the journey of identifying their authentic self or their authentic identity. And if you can see in our illustration, these opportunities would really help them develop the process of um, getting or learning or getting their core identity. And we look at them as values. No, we look at them as values. So this is also similar concepts with the literature or the framework that we we actually use now in this study. They're also saying that the experiences of student leaders, the opportunities that we are providing them, are really necessary to improve and develop their identity, leadership identity. And to continue, Miss Marge will continue.
Thank you. And as a summary, so these are the key attributes of student leaders from South Manila Educational Consortium. Student leaders are carrying values-based leadership. They are also decisive leadership, having a decisive leadership, innovative, resilient, and engaged leaders. So our takeaway from these research were the following. Of course, we know that opportunities are really essential for our student leaders. No, we need as a student practitioner, student affairs practitioners, to support them locally and internationally because we believe that these will help them learn and apply the skills necessary for a leader. And then also as a student affairs practitioners, we should empower our student leaders by allowing them to navigate student activities through enhancing responsiveness and fostering culture of trust and innovation. The third is, of course, as a student practitioners, we should also pay attention and rethink the approaches we give to our student leaders as they are also expressing emotional and mental health concerns. And the key takeaways for here is that the attributes we found out from the research will assist us, student affairs practitioners, in South Manila Educational Consortium member schools, will help us in developing our own student leadership program in our own institutions. And of course, will help us for our basis for crafting the programs for the annual Young Leaders Camp and Leadership Award for the South Manila Educational Consortium. So these are the recommendations of our study. Of course, number one is to increase the number of participants. And then also if for the further researchers to use a mixed method wherein they can use a quantitative tool to assess the leadership style of student leaders. And of course, consider the student development program of each institution so that they can give and deepen the meaning of the attributes of each student leaders. So thank you all for listening to us.
Thank you, SMEC team. Now, we witnessed teamwork in action.
Yes.
I apologize that I guess I missed one name in the introduction. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So I'll just address you now as SMEC team. So are there any other questions or you have any other insights or comments no, regarding the paper, Defining Student Leadership Attributes in Higher Education Institution? Yeah, we have 3 to 5 minutes for questions. Dr. Teen.
Afternoon. mean, after this presentation, what does the Committee on Student Affairs for SMEC intend to do with this kind of framework?
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Dean. Actually, these research will be our basis for crafting the programs for the next annual leadership program, which we also intend to publish this research and give it to the respective institutions from the South Manila Educational Consortium so that they will have a basis on the students that they have, especially the student leaders, in their respective institutions. And definitely, we'll be having a leadership award intended for the student leaders under this MEC consortium.
Cyril, would you want to add? Okay, that's good. Thank you, Dr. Tin. Any other inquiries, questions from the other participants? All right, 1, 2. Having none, so we give the SMEC team a big round of applause. Thank you, thank you. The next paper would also be a teamwork. It's entitled The Critical Reflections of Student Affairs Practitioners of the Philippines in the Post-Pandemic Period, authored by Marian Tesoro from Academy of Our Lady of Guam. Again, Sir Cyril Lituanas from De La Salle University, Mr. Juanito Alcazar from De La Salle University, and Carl Fernandez also from De La Salle University. So we welcome this team, and please give them a big round of applause. Okay.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So, as introduced by Sir Mike, yes, my name is Mary Ann Tesoro. I came from Guam, representing the Academy of Our Lady of Guam. And my co-researchers are Mr. Cyril Lituanas, Juanito Alcazar, and Carl Fernandez, okay, who are from De La Salle University in the Philippines. So the title of our study is Critical Reflections of Student Affairs Practitioners in the Philippines During the Post-Pandemic Period, Implications for its Programs and Services. So let me just give you a brief background of how we came about this study. So in one of our meaningful conversations after the pandemic, we were, sorry, wait, hold on. Yeah, so our study came about during one of our meaningful conversations about the work that we do as a student affairs practitioners after the pandemic. So we began looking at the literature and have observed that majority of the discourses were related to programs and services student affairs provide to students. And so that led us to wonder how other practitioners experience the transition to the post-pandemic. So we gathered readings and literature about the experiences of student affairs practitioners during the transition, and these are some of the themes we collected. Student affairs practitioners demonstrated a crucial role in the universities and colleges in responding to the needs of the students during pandemic. Student affairs student affairs practitioners were also considered essential workers and first responders from responding to student crisis and providing various student support. And then there were also claims that student affairs practitioners are in the state of emergency due to the effects of the pandemic. And it was also found out that the post-COVID-19 shows that there is a significant relationship between burnout, grit, and the years of service in the student affairs at small colleges and universities in the US. In 2022, in 2022, NASPA reported that student affairs practitioners faced three main issues. The first one is maintaining or increasing student retention post-pandemic. The second issue is that combating increasingly difficult mental health challenges on campus. And the third is the filling the growing student affairs staff shortage gap. So as mentioned earlier, universities and professional organizations focus their interest on the discourse of the needs of the students and services, and topics related to students' affairs practitioners are often excluded in any discussion. So that led us to ask and reflect, how do student affairs practitioners find meaning in their personal and professional experiences during the post-pandemic transition? Given this problem, we sort of ask these following questions. First, how do student affairs practitioners experience the transition to the post-pandemic at the personal and professional levels? Our second question, how does the transition to post-pandemic affect the well-being of the student affairs practitioners? And the third is, how does the transition from pandemic to post-pandemic give meaning to the student affairs practitioners? So we hope to unpack those research questions and to give you more details about how we did our study. Let me turn over the microphone to Mr. Letuañas, our co-researcher.
I'm back. I'm back. Okay. So our study actually is a descriptive phenomenological qualitative research approach. Just to, we think that this is a way to capture the narratives of the 10 student affairs practitioners from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. So that's the three major regions of the Philippines. And we, in terms of the selection of the type of institution, so we have 4 private colleges and universities part of the study. We have 6 also state and community colleges and universities. And from these participants, we have 6 male and 4 female participants. And the majority of these participants are student affairs head, or either dean or the director. Some are counselors as well. So we intentionally select these participants, no, coming from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. We scheduled an interview via Zoom with giving them semi-structured questions using the same, following the 3 research questions. So we formulated semi-structured questions, and we conducted an online in-depth interview. And the researchers, we tried also to review, of course, no, we transcribe and read their stories, their narratives, and tried to reflect beautiful and select beautiful words, no, coming from their their narratives, and this is a reflective thematic analysis. Now, these are the results of our study. We found out that there are common experiences from our student affairs practitioners now in the Philippines. We're looking at there's a lot, no, and we categorize them into themes, and the majority of them in the post-pandemic, they were very busy revisiting policies and programs for students. They were like asking if the programs and services are really helpful for the students, and because of the overwhelming issues that that are also affecting our students. And following in that aspect, no, having said that, they also wanted to improve. They also explore how to improve the technology, their expertise on doing, on answering and providing the services to the students. The third theme is that they really get overwhelmed with the student issues. A lot of the students are facing mental health issues, and common also to the experiences of our student affairs practitioners, the Philippines, is that they are ready and always embrace change, no, in the evolving student affairs practice. So they recognize that it's really an evolving practice, the student affairs practice, based on the needs of the students. And we just give an example of what they said, that the needs of the 21st century students are different. It's digitized, and this is what's lacking that we need to fill in so that we can follow and provide the needs of the students. So we need to revive the activities that have been lost during the pandemic. Another theme we focus on, the other variable, is on their well-being, and it's very dependent to the first variable, which is their performance on the personal level as well are affected. And many of our student affairs practitioners are performing their role despite the challenges and struggles. Sometimes I cannot capture it here, perhaps, in English, but in Filipino, it's saying that I'll say it in Tagalog. So we have a lot of Filipino participants here na ito na yung trabaho ko. So gagawin ko ito kasi talagang ito yung binigay, no, kahit mahirap. And it's also saying that we just do perform our role despite the challenges and struggles. And the other, well, we have encountered a lot also of student affairs, no, in from our study, that they really encountered emotional and mental exhaustion. In fact, this is one of our this is one of the highlights of our study. And this example, for example, one participant said that there was one night when I always go home like feeling empty, like I don't want to eat, I want to consult with a guidance counselor, but I don't have time. But I know there's a problem where I've been. That's really a heavy feeling. And one night, a part of me, suicidal thoughts. So like perhaps suicidal thoughts. So like perhaps someone's whispering, "End now," but it's not worth it. So you're still young, and that's not you. That's an example of the conversation. Result of our from our interview. And our student affairs practitioners as well, they love to receive support from the administration that
Hello.
help.
Under 5 minutes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And help their motivation. So the other side, we can see that so our student affairs as well are also motivated through the support from the administration. There are as well practitioners of student affairs that who chose to live a healthy lifestyle. The third aspect of our study is on meaning making, and our participants said that they gain resiliency from the validation received from the stakeholders, from the administrators, particularly. They value and they find meaning when they maintain togetherness and collaboration among the student affairs practitioners and ensure successful SAS endeavors. And another third is develop creativity at work in SAS and at personal level. And the fourth is they find meaning in accompanying a lot of people, young people, especially the students. And the other result theme is they also find it important to learn and grow in virtues. And this is how we illustrate their the summary of their meaning making of their experiences during the post-pandemic. So, as I said, that the post-pandemic experiences actually affect their well-being, but at the same time, the well-being also affect their performance as a student affairs practitioner. So, but this process also helped them find meaning as a student affairs. So, that's to continue with our study, please. Mr. Carl Fernandez will share.
Thank you, Sir Sai. So to continue with our presentation, allow me to share our initial observations and insights. So on professionalism, we take note of and affirm that the student affairs practitioners have genuine concern and dedication for one's work and especially for the students. Second, the SAP's post-pandemic experiences pave the way to revisit good practices and ensure that the programs and services offered are relevant and responsive to the needs of the students. And third, the SAPs reflect on their skills and competencies because of the overwhelming students during the post-pandemic. And lastly, the SAP's access to opportunities, especially among the Mindanao participants, which is south of the Philippines, are very limited in terms of the access or opportunities. On well-being, the workload has doubled, which affected their mental health. The work of the SAPs that is validated is when they receive affirmation from, or their work is validated when they receive affirmation from the school administration. And lastly, SAPs appear to cope better when opportunities and spaces for relaxation are accessible. So, for instance, in Mindanao, they're near in the province or beach are very accessible. On meaning making, they have increased their capacity to empathize with the students because they experience numerous challenges. Second, the SAP's life revolved around helping others, which compels them to be creative, especially during the post-pandemic, and these opportunities led them to grow as professionals. And lastly, SAP's resiliency stems from the validation gained, as I mentioned earlier, from different stakeholders. So the following are the recommendations after this study is to create an evaluation tool to measure the well-being of the SAPs in the Philippines. Second, to provide more opportunities for professional development among SAPs, particularly for community colleges and state universities where access are very limited. And third, to develop key competencies for SAPs in the Philippines. That's it? And just to continue, initiate more community building programs within the schools, collaborate with other SAPs within the Philippines for research and program development, and lastly, provide opportunities for networking locally and globally. So to conclude, this is our eidetic insight or the essence of everything or the journey of the SAPs in the Philippines. The joy of accompanying the students and their colleagues is the core of their work in student affairs. Thank you.
Thank you, man, Cyril, John, and Carl. It's good to hear that there is actually a research paper to look into the experience of the SA practitioners as well. All right. Are there any additional insights, questions from the audience, clarifications, any recommendations? I know we can all relate to this paper because we all share in the experience. Okay. None? Yes. Yes, KS. KS, and then we have another at the back. You're raising your hand? No? No. Sorry. KS first. All right. Okay. Mm. Okay. Anyone from the team who would like to say something about the point of KS? You need to press the button.
We're just basing from the answers of our participants. They, as I said, they would really appreciate if the administration, including the academic community, the academic sector of the university, would support the program. So they do experience as well. The student affairs practitioners, they experience, for example, less support from the administration, and others as well get support. So we would really clap our hands if they would really give full support. So in a way, it's how would I say, it's a mixed. In the Philippines, we our administration majority recognize the how would I say, recognize the efforts of student affairs, but oftentimes it's lacking. So it's not really enough support. And so that's the reason why when the administration really provides support to the practitioners, we would be very happy. And that's also same with our participants, most particularly during the post-pandemic, because it was very difficult.
Yeah. What is critical, I guess, is the place of the student affairs in the overall structure, organizational chart of the institution. Okay. Anything else for the team? None? All right, we can thank Mean, Cyril, John, and Carl Fernandez. A round of applause. Now, the second to the last paper is really interesting because aside from leadership development, it also talks about masculinity, which would touch also the theme of gender, inclusion, diversity. So we welcome here Christina Witkowicki from USA, the Chief Learning Officer of the University of New Hampshire. A round of applause, please. Cyril doesn't want to let go of the phone.
There we go. Okay. Hello, everybody. Is it good? Okay. It's hard to hear from up here. Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Christina Witkowicki. I serve as Chief Learning Officer. I'm actually from LaunchPoint Consulting. I'm not with a university. It's a small organization, and we work with leadership development, student engagement, student learning, with a variety of universities and organizations that cater specifically to college students. So that's the perspective with which I'm coming to you all today. So why does this matter? And originally, the original study was done in 2018. I have been lucky enough, or I guess unlucky enough, to be able to replicate the findings on an annual basis, which many of you might find horrifying or interesting, or a combination of the two. So why does it matter? So originally when I started doing this study, a number of people said, why are you studying men and leadership? Men are in positions of leadership. Do they really need to be studied in positions of leadership? Do we need to know more about their, how they conduct leadership? We can sort of see that. And my thought process really was, the majority of leadership positions are taken on by men. But because they are majority, we don't often give them support the way that we do other sort of underrepresented student populations, particularly white men. And so the thought process is, if they are going to be in positions of power, but we don't give them support to effectively develop their leadership, are we sort of creating a problem once they get to these leadership roles? Do they have an understanding of sort of how to be effective leaders? As well as, how do you help create spaces at the table for more voices if all the voices look the same? So you have to help them understand a wider variety of leadership styles in order to maybe find value in including different voices at the table. So that's sort of the perspective with which this is coming. So just a little overview of gender constructs in society. So gender constructs have shifted. Sort of. They've shifted more for women. Women have a wider variety of roles that they can play, of traits that they can have, and still sort of be seen as feminine or women, where men sort of don't necessarily have that wide range that they can take. Also, I have my email address on the last slide. If you all would like a copy of this presentation, or there's lots of quotes in here because it's a qualitative presentation or a qualitative study. If you'd like a copy of it, or the outline or the paper that goes along with it, I'm happy to send it along. That way you don't have to worry about taking notes or pictures. Gender roles, gender messages come from early on. And most of the participants in the study over the last several years have said, I don't even actually know where I got some of these ideas from. I just have them. I don't even remember when I got them. So they come from, family members, sports coaches, friends, pop culture. It comes from a wide variety, but it's ingrained so early that they don't even realize that they think or feel this way. College is seen as the most gendered time. It's when students are really exploring their personal identity. It's maybe the first time that they're away from home, and they are understanding kind of their values and their thoughts and beliefs that might be different from what they have learned previously. And they're kind of figuring out what is their personal identity. And then the concept of gender role conflict, which is really where personal traits and characteristics don't necessarily align with a person's kind of natural instincts, or with kind of the constructs that are given to them by society. So oftentimes we assume that gendered characteristics look like this. If we were to graph 100 men and 100 women, we would sort of see these characteristics kind of be two different curves that barely touch. That's what a lot of people assume. However, it actually looks more like this. There is more overlap between the genders. There's more difference within a gender than there are necessarily between genders. However, we don't always accept that within society, and we have these very strict roles, particularly again for men, that to kind of exist within, that don't necessarily maybe fit with who they actually are. Gender role conflict often turns to bouts of depression, inappropriate ways of sort of handling things, substance abuse, things like that. Increased aggressiveness, increased violence towards women. There's a wide variety of ways that gender role conflict is actually unhealthy and sort of shows up in men and society. So a little bit around leadership styles. All of these different leadership styles, show up in the wild on a day-to-day basis. But we do actually see, when we study them, we do actually see that men and women sort of gravitate towards different styles. Is that natural? It wouldn't necessarily match those gender characteristics that we saw on the last slide if they're very distinctively different styles. So are those leadership styles actually learned through gender role norms as opposed to innately part of the characteristics of the individual? So trait-based leadership style, industrial versus post-industrial. Industrial is very hierarchical. Post-industrial is very egalitarian, relational. Women tend to gravitate towards post-industrial, men tend to gravitate towards industrial. Behavioral theories of leadership. So how do certain behaviors and situations impact decision making within leadership styles? Task-oriented tends to be more of a masculine leadership style, where relational and change-oriented tend to be more female-based. And then some of the newer leadership style concepts, transactional, where it's very, again, task-oriented, transformational, much more of a change-oriented, or laissez-faire, sort of a hands-off. Men tend to gravitate towards transactional and laissez-faire, where women tend to gravitate more towards transformational. Again, there's no necessarily biological explanation for why we have those differences. So the thought process really is that this must be sort of constructed within our society. So the original study and the research questions that sort of continue to inform the ongoing research is really about how do gender role norms impact and affect the leadership styles in college men? What about what they learn, how do they then employ that in leadership? It's really focused on Bandura's social learning theory, so the concept that individuals learn by observing the rewards and the punishments of others, and that's how they learn how to behave. So a very basic sort of theory that goes into this. And it utilized post-intentional phenomenology, and phenomenology tends to be more constructive. But post-intentional phenomenology is really much more how are those meanings constructed so that we can actually break down those structures that constrict and oppress the individual. It's not necessarily about the individual or leadership styles or gender role norms. It's the relationship between all of those, the intentionality between all of those, and how meaning is made through all of those. So understanding how that meaning is made can help us sort of break that down so that we can affect change. Like I said, quote heavy, and it's mostly because it's sort of entertaining, but I understand that the slides sometimes look a little chaotic because of that. But some of these are really kind of eye-opening and scary. And so I think it really does help to shape kind of the nine themes and the 4 findings that come along with this research. So theme 1 is, we sort of already touched on it, familial and societal messages around gender norms is sort of where these students receive that information. So it really does come from, the world around them as opposed to internally. 15 minutes goes quickly up here. An organization sets culture, and this is through selection of membership, this is through onboarding or new member education, this is through sort of the everyday, this is how we act and this is how we exist, and we expect you to sort of stay within this. So they learn how they're supposed to act based on the culture of the organization, and that helps shape how they're going to act. They define masculinity as confidence and helping others. An interesting point is, I asked them, how do they define masculinity? And they very clearly would always say, well, there's sort of like alpha masculinity or alpha male, very aggressive, has to always be in charge. That's not me. And I said, okay, great. How do you define masculinity? And they would essentially use softer words to describe the exact same thing. And so it was having confidence, it was helping others, it was sort of being that savior for other individuals, is how they described it. Somebody that could be relied on or counted on. They're navigating unclear boundaries. And this is really sort of, excuse my language, sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't. If they got involved, they got called out about that. If they did not get involved, they got called out about that. And so they felt like there was this very narrow line that they had to tread. And that was very difficult for them. And so it leads into the findings to them to disengage entirely. They had a responsibility to the organization. So they felt as if, the organization was counting on them. They knew that they could do better than the leaders that they've seen, which is interesting because once they actually get in, they're like, you know what? I couldn't. I see why they did it. And so nothing ever changed from year to year once they got into leadership positions. So they have these grandiose ideas. And then once they got in there, they're like, you know what? I'm going to do the exact same thing because I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing up here. But somebody's got to do it, so it might as well be me. They learned on the job. Student affairs practitioners, we want to teach leadership skills and styles, and we don't always do a great job of it. And so oftentimes they felt as if they got into this job, they didn't understand what they were doing. They were, part of the masses yesterday, and now they're in charge, and they have all these eyes on them, and they know no more information than they did the day before. They felt as if they were sort of always on. There was always a crisis. There was always somebody who needed help. There was always somebody that needed something from them. And so they never really got downtime, which then ultimately leads to them removing themselves from organizations, which starts to look more like apathy. They had a curated image. The vast majority of participants use the word facade, and they use that organically. That is not a word that appears anywhere in questioning. That they really have to create this image of what they think their organization thinks a leader is, and that's they do acting. So that they sort of create this new persona so that people will take them seriously. And status comes at a cost. They have nobody to go to for support. Everybody's looking at them. They can't say they don't know something because then they're weak. They are very visible. They're living in a fishbowl on campus, and they're really sort of struggling navigating that. So, like I said, looks like chaos. So, finding one, authoritarian approaches to leadership hide a lack of confidence and knowledge and abilities in leading a group. They don't actually know what they're doing up there, so that they utilize very dictatorship styles, so nobody asks questions. That if they look very confident, people will not notice the cracks in the facade, and they will not ask questions, and no one will have to know that they don't actually know what they're talking about. In caring for others, they see themselves as the organization's savior. They really do think the organization sort of owes them something because of all that they are giving up to lead this organization that they didn't really want to do in the first place. They have difficulty navigating those conflicting expectations of gender and what they perceive to be as unprovoked attacks on campus, that they choose to disengage entirely. They don't talk about it outside of each other, but they do talk about it within each other. And so they find other people and like, you know what I'm talking about, you have the same experience. And so it becomes sort of a vicious cycle where they're commiserating about this and get themselves all riled up. Organizational presidents or chapter presidents isolate themselves from their organizations in order to maintain that moral authority and power over others. If they continue to sort of exist within this group, people will see the facade, they will see maybe the moral breakdown or the challenges behind it, and they may not necessarily listen to them as much. And then recommendations for practice. So like I said, they don't know any more information on day one of leadership as they did the day before. And so developing sort of pre-term materials to help students decide if they're going to run for a position and to facilitate transition into that decision. Giving them the skills that they need, but giving them sort of on demand, because they might not know that they have to develop conflict management skills on day one, but on day 30 they may need those. And so giving them the ability to sort of find the information that they need when they need it. They are the YouTube generation. Let's not let them learn the stuff we don't want them to learn from YouTube. Ongoing training and debriefing. They need to know over and over again, they need to be able to process with somebody that they can trust. And help them make meaning out of those experiences and figure out, okay, what went well, what didn't go well, how do we do this better next time? What does that look like so that they can ongoing develop their skills? Incorporate concepts of healthy masculinity into onboarding programming. So orientation programming, leadership development programming, talking about healthy masculinity helps them understand the differences. Encouraging and facilitating relationships between organizational presidents. They are the only ones on campus that know those experiences, and so creating that environment where they can bounce ideas off of each other is really helpful. And developing some sort of campus or organizational Good Samaritan policy. So if something is going wrong, they feel comfortable and confident that they can come to you and ask you questions, and you will work with them to do better. Promise an email address. I think I made it in 15 minutes. I don't know.
Thank you, Christina. On masculinity and leadership development. Any insights from the group? Questions? Christina to Christina.
There's no reason. No, I don't. I should have been that creative, but no, it was really just to make it less bland.
Thank you, team. Dominic, yeah.
Is there a demographic to the people you've interviewed or to the masculinity that you're looking into? Like, Asian male could be very different.
Absolutely, and that should be and can be ongoing studies.
Mm-hmm.
I typically work with a lot of men's fraternities actually, and so the students that I interview and study tend to be outgoing leaders from that organization. So that organization actually has chapters all around the world, a number in Europe. They're starting some in North Africa. They've got a number in Canada and the United States, but the majority of them are white American straight men. So yes, there is a specific perspective that comes from that. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Maybe there can be a parallel study in the context of the Asia. Yeah, that's good. Anything else for Christina? All right. None. Thank you again, Christina. We give her a round of applause, please. Okay, time check. 3:11. We're still on time. The last but not the least, our colleague from South Korea, Kyushuk Kim, but he said I can just call him KS, to share the emergence of DEI committees in South Korean higher education, its implications from a global perspective. A round of applause for KS.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Hi. First of all, I'm proud to be probably one of 3 South Korean persons in this room, including 2 engineers. So, as a person from South Korean higher education, I'm very proud to have this beautiful event in South Korea, and in Daegu in particular. So the topic that I'm presenting today is Inter Students and DEI Organization in South Korean higher education, which is slightly different from the topic that I presented to the committee in advance. I'm actually taking a role project manager at UA Corporation, which is one of the largest, 2 largest international education in South Korea, education company in South Korea, and also I'm a PhD candidate at Korean University, concentrating on international education and education administration. First, I want to show some of the graphics that shows like overall growth in international students in South Korea. I divided the whole period into 3 parts: first wave, second wave, third wave. And the number of international students in South Korea has rapidly increased for the last 25 years, since maybe 1999 or 2000. And that was the moment when the South Korean government tried to attract more and more international students to South Korea to, in an attempt to achieve like globalization at home, as you probably know. So you see how fast it has grown. And the interesting about this graph is that during the pandemic, actually we didn't actually experience like a significant drop compared to the previous years. So it is more like upward trend. So in terms of the geographical origin of international students in South Korea, as you probably can imagine, majority of them are from China and Vietnam, and some like in Middle Asia, like Uzbekistan and Mongolia. And not many from like the other countries, for example, like Myanmar, France, Russia, even if many of them actually record over 1,000. So the total number of international students in South Korea now reached like 180,000 as of last year. So interesting trend that we can observe from the statistics is that there's a significant difference between the pattern of degree-seeking students and non-degree-seeking students. And you see during the pandemic, the non-degree-seeking students number actually dropped significantly from around maybe 60K to down to maybe 30K. And another good thing about like South Korean higher education is that the postgraduate level studies, the number has grown so consistently that it has never shown any sign of like going down. Geographical distribution. I think this graph, this like visual image, is pretty interesting for for you to observe. The ratio of international resident to total population. You see like some darker parts and the brighter parts, and it shows that the darker the region is, then more dense the international residents. Residents are living in that particular area. But as you see here on the left side and on the right side, there are significant differences. So it means that the ratio of international student residents to total population is not quite translating the same as the ratio of international students to total population. So Seoul has absolutely dominating the number of international students. Now it's about like over 60K, while the other places has shown some sort of modest increase, but not as big as Seoul. So now the place that you're staying right now, at least in my presentation, Daegu, is also a big city for education, but not as big as Seoul. Now, I'm going to talk about my research, DEI organizations in South Korean higher education. So let me like open up my talk for this part by introducing like two stories which are pretty unhappy to hear about. Last year, one of the South Korean universities deported 22 Uzbekistani students to their country without any proper processing, so that it was very quickly handled in South Korean society. So the president of that university actually made a statement to apologize for those students and maybe Uzbekistan people here, and maybe to the South Korean society as a whole. And here in Daegu, there's another like controversial issue is happening. One of the as the number of like Muslim students are growing, the society, the civil societies in Daegu wants plan to establish like a mosque to support those students, Muslim students in Daegu. But there were some people who didn't really like that idea, so that they made a strong protest. Even they placed like a pig head in front of the planned location for that the Muslim construction. So it was like a pretty big issue, and even it was like covered by Al Jazeera in the Middle East. So all these kind of backgrounds actually motivated me to study how we can actually better support international students with diversified backgrounds like ethnicity, culture, religion, place of origin, ethnicity, and so forth. Actually, higher education in South Korea has predominantly served domestic students, maybe up until 2000. So, but as you saw in the graph that I showed earlier, the number has risen so fast up to 180,000. And now, last year, the South Korean government, the Ministry of Education, announced a plan to increase the number up to 300K. So the project is called Study Korea 300K projects. So it is pretty ambitious plan to increase the number by 2027. But when I was young, I'm 40, for example, for your information. When I was young, South Korean people were very proud of being a homogeneous society. So we are one nation. We think we are very we move forward in solidarity. But so single ethnic nation was something that we are very proud of in the past. But nowadays, people think that why it is so important to be a single ethnic nation. And in fact, in reality, we are not single ethnic because we are living with more than 2 million interracial people living in South Korea. So a lot of debates happened with regard to a transition to a multicultural nation. So a lot of policies, policymakers brought up some ideas to establish a new immigration bureau or a committee to promote more diversified understanding about where we are heading to. So now the diversity is the national agenda of South Korea. Along with that, a lot of conversation discourse emerged in the domain of diversity within the South Korean society. So one of the most key reasons is that South Korean society is experiencing a significantly low birth rate, which is the lowest in the OECD nations, about 0.6. So which is very, very tragic in terms of our future of our society. So now many people think that we need more interracial people, in part in order for us to actually survive as a nation. So a lot of people now are speaking about we need more diversity, we need more inclusion. In that context, higher diversity in higher education is start to be considered very important. But unfortunately, DEI research is very limited, especially in higher education sector in South Korea. So apart from a few documents related to the admission systems, for example, race conscious, not race conscious, but their socioeconomic status conscious admission process, which is inactive in South Korean education. But compared to the US or the other developed countries, higher education in South Korea has not yet established itself as a standalone academic discipline. But unfortunately, maybe since maybe 2017, a few progressive and very forward-looking universities started establishing DEI organization in South Korea to support those interracial students. Time constraints. Right. Actually, I used a CIPP research framework. I believe many of you are familiar with this framework. So it's more like content analysis, and I actually analyzed the trend and policy developments within this framework. So I studied 3 different universities, which are top tier universities that actually established DEI organizations in South Korea, Seoul National, KAIST, and Korea University. And I compared the cases in South Korea with the case of US, focusing on the State University of New York. All right. I think I can just point one on each page. So in terms of context, the female professor's role was very important. Historically, female faculty and researchers were not represented properly in South Korean higher education. So the very small number of people, female faculty and researchers, tried to voice their argument to protect their rights and think that the females should be more active in doing scholarly and teaching practices. Second, input actually to support those initiatives university vice president and vice president started supporting the DI organizations, and that sort of efforts lead to the creation of those committees or organizations under the structure of each university. Unfortunately, however, there were some like DEI challenges because DEI, the concept of DEI is very familiar, very exotic from South Korean perspective. So it sometimes like cause a lot of controversial situation where even some faculty and students actually protest against DEI movement because it usually they often view the lens of gender equality only or women's right. Even though the DEI is not only for women, it's not only for like gender equality, it's for everyone. And it is also important to mention that it causes clashes with historical values and cultures of South Korea, which have been under the huge influence of Confucius ideology. So these are the products. Seoul National University published like a diversity report every year, and KAIST actually made an inclusivity statement, and Korean University did like campus climate survey every 2 years to assess how diverse and inclusive the campus culture is. So these are the recommendations. So we need to clearly define the importance of goal of DEI. We need to utilize DEI from strategic and management perspective. This is really important because some people think that DEI is only like something up in the air. Oh, DEI, so what is DEI? So what? What we really expect from that value? But actually, from operational and strategic point of view, if we put an emphasis on DEI, more faculty, more like brilliant international faculty and students come to our campus and to help us make our campus more vibrant and energetic and diverse, and so that we can actually reach our strategic goal of development. For example, the number of students, number of international students, or research output, all these kind of things. Also, we need to recognize the critical role of university leadership, because without, and otherwise, probably this initiative will face a huge challenge to be implemented in the real situation. Lastly, I want to emphasize the importance of professional development skills for the professionals who are in the DI office. Right? That's it for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, KS. All right. For the last time,
Any
we have
questions?
any other questions for KS? Additional insights? No, this is on
I know that all of
inclusions.
you are tired.
All right. If there are none, then again, we thank KS for presenting to us the paper.
Thank you. One last comment. I'm very active in LinkedIn, so if you have any questions or want to make some more connections for future research collaboration or any other business development, please contact me via LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you, KS. Okay, just some reminders before we take the break. Now, I'm sure we all had a really enriching and meaningful session. Now, with all the knowledge shared by our presenters, we hope that this would contribute to the one theme of the Iasas that is on empowering our students. Again, for them to become leaders and change agents, to impart to them the values, competencies, and skills and knowledge necessary to contribute to building a more sustainable society. Last two reminders, please don't leave without scanning the QR code for the presentation rating for this concurrent session. Diane is trying to get access to it and to project it. All right. And then, again, please note that session 4C and 4D will also will start at 3:40 p.m. There is an error in the program. It's not actually 4 p.m. 4C and 4D will start at 3:40 p.m. Thank you, everyone, and I would say mabuhay from Philippines. You don't find it? All right. I'll put my laptop here for you to access the QR code. Thank you, everyone, and see you at the next session.